Get your equipment off my land. It's just a dirty pond. That's a registered fire suppression source. Ma'am, we cleared this with the board. You just broke the law. Congratulations, everyone. That's what HOA president? Denise Coyle told her. Bored the morning, she had my 2-acre reservoir pumped dry and filled with gravel. I wasn't there to hear it. I was 40 miles north at a ranch supply auction. My phone told me first. Low water level alert. Reservoir tank 1. Then a second alert. Pump failure detected. Then a third. Zero flow, 30 minutes. That pond wasn't decoration. My grandfather dug it in 1974 after a grass fire took out half the county. Every rural fire truck for 12 miles drafted from it. It was marked on the department's dry hydrant map with a blue triangle and a number. Draft point 6. I drove home with a knot in my stomach that only got tighter. When I turned up my driveway, the pond wasn't a pond anymore. It was a dirt pit. Dump trucks were still backing gravel into the deep end. A backhoe sat parked on what used to be 6 feet of water. And standing in the middle of it, clipboard in hand, was Denise Coyle. You drained my fire pond. She smiled like I'd complimented her. We resolved it. Standing water attracts mosquitoes. Residents have complained for 2 summers. That water was for the fire department. It's on your property. It's on the county's dry hydrant registry. I pulled up the map on my phone and turned it toward her. Draft point 6, right there. For the first time, her smile faltered. Nobody told us that. Did you ask? She didn't answer. One of the backhoe operators quietly climbed down from his machine and stepped away from her, like he already didn't want to be standing that close when this went wrong. It went wrong 4 hours later, when the sky to the west turned the color of a dirty penny. Question for you. If someone destroyed the water source your fire department depended on hours before fire season's first red flag warning, what should happen to them? Drop your answer below. The scanner in my kitchen crackled at 4:52 p.m. Grass fire, County Road 9, wind-driven, structures threatened. I knew that stretch of road. I knew which engines would respond. And I knew exactly which draft point sat closest to it. Mine. I called the fire chief directly. He didn't waste time. Tell me draft point 6 is still there. It's gravel. Silence on the line. Then, say that again. 20 minutes later, a brush truck rolled up my drive with its lights going, followed by the chief's own pickup. He got out, looked at the filled-in pond, and didn't say a single word for almost 10 seconds. Who authorized this? I pointed toward the clubhouse. The HOA board did. His radio was already in his hand. Dispatch. Reroute engine 14 and the tender to draft point 9. 6 is out of service. Repeat, 6 is destroyed. 9 was 11 minutes farther. On a wind-driven fire, 11 minutes is a house. The chief turned to me. How full was that pond? 60,000 gallons easy. Emergency reserve on top of what the tender carries. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Everyone standing in my driveway understood exactly what 60,000 missing gallons could mean to a house that was still standing at that moment, and might not be by dark. That's when the second truck arrived. Not fire, not sheriff. A white pickup with a state seal on the door. Department of Natural Resources. Wildfire Mitigation Division.A. Woman in a tan uniform stepped out holding a folder thick enough to need both hands. I'm looking for whoever authorized modification of a registered emergency water source, she said. Denise, who had followed the trucks up my driveway to see what was happening, raised her hand like she was answering a question in school. That would be our board. The inspector opened the folder. Then your board just violated a state wildfire readiness easement that's been on file since 2003. If you found out your HOA quietly destroyed county emergency infrastructure without checking a single record, would you forgive the mistake or demand it go to court? Tell me in the comments. The investigation took 6 weeks, and it stopped being about mosquitoes almost immediately. The DNR inspector pulled the original easement. My grandfather hadn't just built a pond. He'd granted the county a permanent right to maintain it as a fire suppression source in exchange for a reduced property tax rate that our family had been quietly receiving for over 20 years. The pond wasn't just protected. It was on paper half the county's. Then came the part that made it bigger than negligence. Denise's emails, subpoenaed along with the HOA's, showed a message from someone outside. The board entirely, the HOA's landscaping contractor, who'd been pushing a wetlands beautification proposal for months. Attached to one email was a site plan. It didn't stop at my pond. It showed the entire drained basin regraded into building pads for 6 new lots, backing onto what remained of my property line. The contractor had told the board the pond was an unpermitted eyesore. He never mentioned it was county infrastructure. He also, investigators found, had a signed agreement to broker the sale of those future lots the moment the land was cleared. One board member, reviewing the emails for the first time in front of investigators, put it simply, we thought we were fixing a mosquito problem. We were the excuse somebody needed to get a bulldozer onto that land. Question for you. When the person breaking the rules isn't the one who benefits, who should be held responsible? The board that signed off, or the outsider who set it up? By the time the case reached the courthouse, the fire on County Road 9 was old news. 2 outbuildings lost, no homes, thanks to Engine 14 making it to draft point 9 with minutes to spare. But the judge made clear the ruling wasn't about how lucky that day had turned out. This is about a governing board, authorizing the destruction of protected emergency infrastructure without verifying. A single fact, she said. Luck is not a defense. The landscaping contractor was barred from doing business with any HOA in the county and ordered to pay the full cost of restoring the pond. The board itself was required to reimburse the fire department for the added response cost and adopt a new rule. Nothing affecting land bordering, agricultural or emergency use. Property moves forward without independent county sign-off first. Denise didn't fight the ruling. Outside the courthouse, she said one thing to me. I never once thought to check the map. 3 months later, the pond was rebuilt, deeper than before, with a new concrete draft pad and a sign the county insisted on installing. Draft point 6, county emergency water source. Do not alter. Nobody will get to say they didn't know again. Final question. If an HOA destroyed something your community depended on in an emergency and only fixed it after getting caught, would you call that accountability or just damage control? Drop your answer below and tell me what city you're watching from.